Good evening. Welcome to our February event. I'm always thrilled to see such a positive turnout for our little events here. It's a great tribute to the community, to our speakers, and to y'all for supporting us. Speaking of supporting, I want to give a couple thanks out to a couple organizations that have helped us this past month. We received a nice donation from the graduating class of 1969 at Martin County High School. They made a sizable donation to us. We also received a nice donation from the Knight Kiplinger family. All those donations are wonderful. Membership is what drives an organization. It's not just your dues and your membership, it's you reaching out to the community and sharing with your friends and neighbors the information about the museum. You know, this coming year, that's sort of going to be my mantra, is reaching out and making people aware that we're here and that they're coming in and we're able to share the knowledge that we have here. Quite honestly, I'm real tired of seeing people come into the museum and telling me the last time they were in here, they were with their dad and they were buying baby chickens. We've been here a long time. Start bringing your neighbors in, start bringing your children in, or your grandchildren in, because we plan to be here for a long time yet. I told Barbara that she'd have a chance to tell us a little something she's got going on.
You didn't tell us your name.
Gary
That's
Maxwell.
It's unimportant. It's unimportant.
Hi, I'm Barbara Osborne, and Sandy used to give the tours at the Captain Sewell's house, and she has trained my husband and me. He's Captain Sewell, and he dresses in the Greek fishing cap and the suspenders, so it's historically accurate. And then I portray Abby, and it's first and third Wednesdays of each month at the Captain Sewell's house. Who knows where the Captain Sewell's house is? Okay, for those that don't, do you know where Indian Riverside Park is? Okay, it's between the Tuckahoe Mansion and the Sailing Center. So it's the only time the house is open, and it's a passion of mine. There's few things in my life locally that are passions. One is the Rivers Coalition and the Captain Sewell's house. So we don't do it during the summer because there's no air conditioning in there. But the PowerPoint I use is by Sandy, and it gives the history of the house and the history of the Sewell family. And I just love doing it. And last Wednesday we had 70 people. Wow. The snowbirds are back.
Let them keep flocking in. We need them to come in and support all our organizations. I'd also like to acknowledge Rich Campbell for being with us, Commissioner. Thank you for being with us tonight.
He's the mayor.
The name.
Mayor.
And you got the name backwards.
Well, I do a lot of things backwards. Ask the rest of the board; they'll tell you. And Vicki Davis is with us tonight, so appreciate having the support of these officials. There's probably others here that I haven't acknowledged, but we appreciate you all being here. Our guest speaker tonight, Sandy Thurlow, is a noted author, historian, and a great friend of the museum. I present you Sandy to tell us a little history on the Centennial of Martin County.
I'm actually planning to sit because, it's covering 100 years, and I hope you all will stay with me. But this is a picture of the great celebration parade on January 28th, 1926. They didn't quite have it done in the year that the county was created, so they had it in January. And it was the biggest parade that we've ever had to this day. And we have a few things that we have many pictures of. We have many pictures of the float of the parade. We have many pictures of the 1934 hailstorm, and we have many pictures of the 1949 hurricane. That's the only thing we have, a big clump of pictures to illustrate. This particular photograph was taken in 1925. That's why it's so valuable. And we were so fortunate in that Ed Menninger published all these booklets and maps, and great big they were. Can you remember how big the Stuart News was at one time? It wasn't just a little paper, it was a big paper, and he would publish these special magazine quality booklets made and insert them in the paper. So they're wonderful time capsules and wonderful to have. And this was in one of them. And just to point out a few things, because we do still, look, this is a post office arcade. Here are the Coventry apartments. Here, it's still there. I don't know how long it's going to be there now. Maybe our mayor has some idea, but that is Riverside Apartments, the Riverview Apartments that used to be the Kimberly Apartments, but it has just remained as is all these years. Hasn't changed much. Another thing that you will see is the feed store is up here, and this was the city dock. We now have another city dock. But this, I want you to notice, this was the yacht club, and it was the center of activity. Lots of things happened. During this big celebration, the governor had a big luncheon there, and it was Stanley Kitching who was the host, and he was Commodore. And even after it blew down, he remained a Commodore for years and years. So I think that's just go on. So before we were in Martin County, it was Palm Beach County. And I collect all these little booklets and all. This is a booklet. And my friend said, oh, I could rearrange that so this will show. But I arranged it, oh shoot. I arranged it that way just so we could have the name of Henry Newton Gaines, Stuart, representing Stuart. But this is all about Palm Beach County. So this was right before our county was formed. And he is very instrumental in our county being formed. He was trying to get things for our county, and he had just gotten a little bit of attention from the big Palm Beach County, and he had gotten Loop Road and what we called Indiantown Road. It was also called Gaines Highway, sometimes it is. And so he had just gotten this attention, and then his colleagues were ready to have a new county. And you know politics, Campbell, it was really dicey there. I mean, what would your colleagues think? You just got this money for these roads, and now you want to pull away and start a new county. But so he just kind of laid low. And another reason he is very important is his daughter was married into the Menninger family. So this is the Menninger family. All of them were psychiatrists except for our Ed Menninger. And here he's just a boy in this picture. Here he is. And they were his mother. She wrote Bible books about how to study the Bible. And so he had that kind of publishing in his family. And of course, the doctors, this is his dad, and both of his brothers were in the Menninger Clinic in Kansas. And so he gets sick. And he comes to stay with Mr. Gaines because he's kind of a relative. And he had been in New York. He had been a big journalist. He'd gone to journalism school. And then he came down here to get over the flu. And you know, it was about that time I was wondering if it might have been the big flu epidemic, because he had the aftermath of the flu, and he couldn't lick it, and he came down here. And thank goodness, because he stayed down here, he got a job in West Palm, and then he bought the South Florida developer and brought it over here. And for a while, our town had 2 newspapers, and we weren't even the county yet. And I think, you know how excited I am about Martin Digital History. I think I got this wonderful picture of Ed Minnick, this one, because he, I think I got it from one of the pictures that Georgian has posted. But notice his hand in his pocket. Is Rick Crary here? Oh, Rick, will you tell me why his hand is in his pocket?
Well, when he was in college, he was in chemistry class, and he took a beaker, and he probably knew he shouldn't shake it because he was right-handed, but he held it up and gave it a shake, and it caused a terrible explosion. Blew off his left hand and blew out one of his eyes.
And we were laughing that we had the neighborhood crew here, but Rick ran around St. Lucie Estates, and anybody that had time in St. Lucie Estates saw Dr. Menninger regularly. Yeah. So this was the birthday issue. This is an example of one of those books that he wasn't Dr. Menninger yet. Ed Menninger published. And see, those are the dates of the parade. And it is a wonderful time capsule. And I'm going back to Martin Digital History again. I have a copy of that is all moth-eaten and torn and discolored. But Heidi McNabb, who is a dyer from the Dyer family, she gave Martin Digital History this perfect, clean copy. And you can go right through the pages, and it's filled with very important photographs and information. So another plug for Martin Digital History. So we have some very important people that this is Carol Dunscombe, and he's another person that people in St. Lucie Estates knows about. And he married Janet Kruger. And that house still stands. That's the beautiful Kruger house that we drive by all the time. And they were playing tennis, and he happens to be the cousin of Homer Hines Stuart, for whom Stuart is named. And those of you, here we have Hartmans here, Jack used to live in the Dunscombe house that was built by Carol's mother. And he and Janet lived there for a while until the Depression, and I think they couldn't afford to live on the river in that big house anymore. And then Peter's brother, his Uncle Jack bought it, his father's brother. And all of these people, all of these Hartmans were commissioners and mayors, and so you aren't the most special one in the world. So, now because Rick wrote that wonderful...
Commissioner Clark.
Yes, I see you. Thank goodness you are here. And so I didn't realize the importance of this picture until Rick wrote his article. And I hope everybody's picking up a copy of Indian Magazine, because Rick and Donna and I were asked to put it together, and the only thing that we didn't do is the Ashley Gang, which was done by the editor and publisher, Greg Innes. But all the rest, we just did it ourselves. So we had that opportunity, and we're happy that we had a way to celebrate the Centennial with it. But this guy up here, now if you in 5 words can tell me about him.
Oh, you tell me what you were going to say.
No, I'll get it wrong. But his name is Major Schumann, and that is a rank. That wasn't his first name. Until Rick wrote this, I think I thought his name was Major. because we did have a Justice of the Supreme Court whose first name was Major. So anyway, he came to town, and he was a big deal. He was a mover and shaker, and he knew how to lend money, and so this was his bond and mortgage company, and he got the money together, however, to build a post office arcade and a few other buildings, especially the Pelican Hotel. And what is interesting is that Governor Martin was one of the owners of the syndicate, thank you. The people, the guys got together and built the hotel. And every picture, and I could take forever, so be careful, speed me up if I digress too much. But this particular photograph came to Stuart Heritage by somebody that was leaving town in an old car, and she wouldn't even say her name. And Courtney Bauer was a volunteer at the museum, and she dropped off these old photos, and some of them were very moth-eaten, but they're wonderful. Isn't it wonderful to have a picture of the Pelican Hotel under construction? And there were at least a dozen really important photographs she dropped off. But this is one reason the feed store is so great. It's so obviously there, and people who are in a situation like this, thank goodness she dropped them off. This is the post office arcade that's still in that picture. That 1925 picture is still a very important part of our town today, and it was financed by Major Schumann. Here is Jo Marie Paradise is not here, but she is like an archive holder of the things her family has collected. And Rick and I benefit so much from this. And she has these pictures, and also the Hartmans did too, of this signing. And just to refresh your memory, this is Warner Chilton. And he wasn't someone that was homegrown. He married into the Rico family, but his father-in-law had just died, and he got he had to do everything that this big kingpin of landowner, Mr. R.R. Rico. Here, you're kin to him too, so I better be careful. So he was at the signing, and he had his wife and 3 sons there too. His daughter wasn't born yet. But here's Stanley Kitching. Here is Jackson McDonald, and isn't that your grandfather, great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather, and he was our first mayor. And then, of course, here is John Martin, and this is Jo Marie's grandfather, Jo Marie Paradise's grandfather, Mr. Taylor, who ended up being our, he was everything. He was the bank president and building the buildings like the El Biltmore, the hotel, the Atlantic Court Apartments, and he was just into everything. And it was his wife who kept everything and wrote down everything, Jo Marie's grandmother.
No one looks very happy. There's not a smile in the face.
Yeah, it was serious. So this is from Jo Marie, and I think it's just to have that paper. And of course, it's a South Florida developer, and it's an extra. So Martin County wins, and so it's wonderful to have that, and that's one of the things Jo Marie has at the Taylor Ashley office. This photograph is from the Florida State Archives, and I used it in my book on Stuart, and I'm afraid that it's in our Martin Digital History, but it really is from the Florida Archives. So this is the yacht club that I pointed out in the aerial, and there is Stanley Kitching. And Stanley was like Joe Marie's great-grandparents were the Kitchings, and they had only one child, Josephine, who was Joe Marie Paradise's grandmother. But the other Kitching, who went to Sebastian, he had 12 children, and poor Stanley didn't want children. He had so many brothers and sisters. He was the older one, and he didn't want to have any kids. He had had enough kids in his family. So he was a bachelor all this time until 1950, and then he got married. This picture is on the front of that magazine that I hope you're taking home. And she actually, the designer, and today we have my designer of my books, who is Mrs. Campbell Rich, Heidi Rich. And she knows about how it is to design things, and I think the cover is very nice. And Michelle just went around and she left this guy, whoops, she left this guy out, and that's Addison Meisner. He's pretty important. She just left him right out. And that important person came to our birthday celebration. And so they had really gotten the word out. People came from all over Florida for this celebration. And they had just had their dinner at the yacht club with Stanley Kitching as the host. Now remember I told you we had a lot of pictures at the parade, so I just did a kind of a collage so you'd see that we have quite a few, and that's just a few, yes. So, Todd, I'm sorry. You know how I love my pioneers because I've dedicated my life to researching them. I got very sad when I saw this article in newspapers.com. This was the parade that they had just a month or so after the big parade with all the pictures. Over 100 robed Klansmen went in the same route that the other parade went. So this is what our heritage also is, and this was a way just to keep control and have your laborers and have your maids, and it's very unfair. The flagpole at the school was dedicated by the Klan, and they had announcements at their meetings, just like Rotary, not quite as many as Rotary and Kiwanis, but the announcement of their meetings were in the paper. Okay, the Pelican Hotel was the center, and this is an early postcard, and we already saw that picture of it being built. But this is a good one. Now, when Governor Martin...
Ms. Thurlow, is that Mr. Gear's office?
Yes, it is. And I did a blog. It's so wonderful that here, and the Klan went by it too. And so it's just so perfect that, and here we have that wonderful movie that was made with the burial, and he certainly was, Willie is a great success financially. And, and he's also preserved a very important building beautifully. So Governor Martin sent his two colleagues, his lawyer colleagues from Jacksonville, to make sure his county, named after him, was you know, up to snuff and a fine thing. So he sent Abe Canner and Judge Smith. And Ed Smith, this is a picture that I recently got through Don Armstrong, who founded Stuart Heritage. And then Judge Canner was another person in St. Lucie Estates that was right there with, and they really did take care of this county. But Judge Smith, this is a thing from the dedication of the Martin County Hospital. And look, we have Ed Miniger, we have Joseph Reed, and we have Mr. Hudson, and we have, this is Mr. Smith, Judge Smith, this is Abe Canner, and here are 3 doctors that we know, Doc Burns, Dr. Parker, and Dr. Uritt. And Uritt was the one that put the flag up, I'm afraid. He's from West Virginia. But this is such a wonderful piece of art, don't you think? Yes?
Our mayor lives in Judge Canner's house in St. Lucie Estates.
Yes, he does. He does live in Judge Canner's house. And a little story is that, you know, Heidi is my designer, and I used to spend a lot of time at her house, and you should have a better light over your table. And she said, that's because you have the chandelier that you bought that Governor Martin had given to Mrs. Canner, and I have it over my dining room table. And so, yes, we're all so mixed together.
She has no idea how it got there.
And I don't, they're just, if we just went around the room, we would be all so connected. But this, I was very happy that I got this piece of, Heidi, what do you call a designed paper with the color, and it's wonderful, from the first brochure, because it's very rare, and if I didn't nag somebody that had a position of importance at the hospital, I don't think we would have it to copy and use. But what was sad is that Judge Smith and Dr. Burns both died in 1939. So that was a long time ago, because that was the year I was born. That was 86 years ago. So, but all this time, in another section of St. Lucie Estates, this house that was the Smith's house they bought in 1927 was their family home. And it just stayed so perfect, just like that. And their children, Judge Smith's son, who was also named Ed, he had died, and his widow, the children didn't want it, so she was going to sell it. And it's on 2 lots, and oh, it was just, and the reason, also another connection, is that Don Armstrong's mother was orphaned and was a relative of Judge Smith. And so the reason she came, they had 3 of their own children and 2 orphan niece and nephew to raise. And if she hadn't come to Judge Smith's, we wouldn't have Don Armstrong, we wouldn't have those 2 early architects, and we wouldn't have a Stuart heritage, I don't think. So I was in contact with Mrs. Smith, and I said, you know, there's somebody in town that would buy that and not tear it down. And it was Steve Vitale, who has just preserved so many buildings. And he did, he bought it, and this is what it looks like. It's pink, but it still looks like it, you know, and it's so beautiful inside. It hasn't been changed except air conditioning and a modern bathroom, but Don Armstrong did it, so you know it's done in a very sensitive way. And another house. So here is Rick's beloved grandparents and their house. And you know it sits right over here, right? Right over here. Mm-hmm. And it was moved, and I felt like this was going to be the end of Stuart heritage, because the Chris Sawicki at the time said, oh, we'll pay for it, you know, and then they didn't get the inheritance that they thought they were going to get in time, and the city. So it all worked out. So instead of restoring the house, Stuart Heritage restored the feed store. And so that money went toward the restoration of the feed store. And to preserve this house, and the way I get a lot of things done is to do things poorly, and then the person that knows it better than I know it will do a better job. And so that is a story of Rick Frary becoming a real historian, writer, not just writing the great American novel. He has also written local history that's been compiled into a book, and he has also gotten his wife to be an excellent writer of articles for Indian River Magazine. But of course, Crary came as soon as he graduated from college. Ed Brobson was our city attorney, and everything was going on crazy, you know, the boom was on, and he needed help. And so he hired Evans Crary right out of law school, and he came in the early years, and then Brobson left, and Crary was here to do so many things well. And poor Tally, Rick says she never really adjusted. She was from Tampa, and it was a big city, and she wasn't sure she ever really liked it here, but she represented and loved her husband and did just fine. So as you have newspapers.com and you have all these oral histories, and sometimes they just don't match. But because after we became a county, everybody wanted it to, like Indiantown wanted to be the county seat, and Golden Gate wanted to have the courthouse there. But evidently, because this newspaper was dated on the 29th of May, the day after the bill establishing the county was signed, so somebody had already decided that the old school was going to be the courthouse. And then that school, they changed the name. It doesn't say school anymore, it says courthouse. And it was our courthouse until 1988. It was still inside there serving us inside the very added on to courthouse. If you go into the Art Center today, if you go in the boys' bathroom, you can still see kind of the face of those blocks. You know, you can see the impression that the blocks, because the addition was put right on it. Okay, I'm a poor reader, but I'm going to just read these. The points I would like to share about the 1920s. We're always complaining about development. We have wanted to develop from the get-go. That's the reason we formed the county. We wanted it to be a big port. It was Jim Crow, and the black citizens were segregated and kept in your place. Okay, I already said that. I don't need to harp on it. Todd says I shouldn't even do that. But O.B. Paget, like before I even started compiling my book on Stuart, I kept coming across all these articles about O.B. Paget. He was running into people and killing them, and he was like shooting people, and he was just a terrible person, and he was our marshal. And so he ended up, he killed somebody and went to Rayford. And then Jessie Quinn, another person that was my very good resource person, and we have a lot of pictures from her, May Axel. She said her father got killed, in the pool room. He'd gotten shot twice by Jessie Quinn. And she said, it was just like the Old West. It was kind of lawless. So, I don't know. She was just a little girl when she lost her dad, but that's what she told me. And so my friend, Doc Pitchford from Jensen, he went to the University of Florida, and I think he was into a few shady things too. But he would visit his friends in Rayford because, you know, Stark is real close by. And and Rico, I mentioned before, you know, we have a map coming up. So this was in the ad of Harry Lyons, and you know, Ernie Lyons is our big environmentalist and our sage, and he was our wonderful editor of the Stuart News. But Harry was big on development, and he was very instrumental. I think you say it was Carol Dunscombe, but he was happy to have that Major Schumann here, so things could be, there could be wheeling and dealing. And this was one of the inserts of the St. Lucie Estates ad. And the little communities all wanted to get on too. Not only a county, we wanted to incorporate our towns. So Salerno incorporated, 21, I have them in order that they incorporated, and Palm City and Jensen and Port Sewell and Indiantown. And by Port Sewell and Indiantown, you know, the boom was already kind of fizzling. So this Chesapeake Bridge was completed before our county was created, and that was the only way to get to Hutchinson Island. But they had a bridge district, and of course that was St. Lucie County. So when we got a new county, that took a little rearranging. And so my point is that the reason I think that we have the little blurb up there from St. Lucie County, and maybe you have an idea about this too, Vicki, but was because of Rico and his power, and we were in competition. It's kind of like the Gators and Seminoles with Fort Pierce, and we had the bank, St. Lucie County Bank, and then they got the big railhead for the Florida Coast Railroad, and they took the bank in a boat, the money and stuff, the safe, and took it to St. Lucie County and Fort Pierce. And so we wanted to be as good as Fort Pierce, so we wanted to have that in the Martin County so we could be in charge of it. See that little blurb up there? That's all that was out of St. Lucie County. That is Rico land, right? So, and the rest came from Palm Beach County. That was our first map, and that was also taken from that big birthday piece that Menninger did. It was in that nice, clean map in that. So this is from the magazine that I hope you all will get. There are quite a few. And Rick Crow went all the way to Fort Pierce to pick up a new supply so you could have them, because they're free and they cover quite a bit of history. And this is one of the pages that I could construct, and at Greg Inns's request, he wanted to have the boom buildings, and they're in the magazine, and then the Depression buildings. But one of the Depression projects in 1930s was the Roosevelt Bridge. And this is a great picture because, see, that's the new bridge. And we're on the old bridge. And you know the old bridge, the name of the old bridge? Concrete Bridge. It didn't even have a name. So, but because of all the work projects that Roosevelt concocted for the Depression, it was named for him. And then this came from Boo's mother, Peggy Clark Lowry, who grew up in the Stuart Hotel. And they were right there when the freight depot caught on fire. So you know how every morning we get up and we think, what's happening wrong in the world today? These poor people, the bridge, you know, they have the fire, and then they have a hurricane in 1933, knocked down everything, and then that hailstorm. I mean, what's going on?
Wow.
I mean, it seemed like, it looks like snow, but it was hail. And it hasn't hailed like that since then. And I don't think we can blame global warming. But there are many pictures of that phenomenon. Some of them show the prairies playing in it. Yeah. And this is another lovely piece of you know, journalism, magazine kind of thing in the newspapers. By that time, Mendiger had bought the other newspapers, and the Stuart Daily News was his. And they didn't print the developer anymore. That program, people would give me things, and now it's on Martin Digital History. But this guy named Mr. Miller in Rio, he had that, and he gave it to me, hoping that I would use it well and protect it, and that he wanted it dedicated to his father, because it had belonged to his father. So I put that in there, I hope. Here are the Depression things, the Stuart Training School, the Environmental Studies Center, which was the Jensen School, the gym. And you know, the white kids had a gym, but it was really kind of rough, right? You guys that played in it was pretty basic. And then, of course, our courthouse, 1937, they just stuck it onto that. See, you can see that old schoolhouse right in behind it. And then the hurricane that I showed you the pictures, and those pictures came from Peggy Lowry too. It just went right on top of the library and the women's club. And so it was completely ruined. So the government, federal government, built this building for the women's club and the library that they had in it. And this was 1939. That's what that nice brochure came for, with the building it. And then we have the war. I have to move along. Yep, I better move. So we call it the House of Refuge, but it became a Coast Guard station in 1915. And of course, it was a Coast Guard station during World War II. And here they had a full group of Coast Guardmen. And then there's a little confusion because the Coast Guard functions under the Navy during wartime. And so they look like sailors, and people that don't know better, like me until I studied up, would think that they were sailors or Navy men, but they are Coast Guard men. And this, you know, pictures come in the weirdest things. John Foster, who also lived in St. Lucie Estates and grew up there, right next to Mrs. Canner's house. He had a girlfriend whose father had served in World War II with the horses and at our Coast Guard station, our House of Refuge. And John was an architect, and he had the job of tying the upper story of the House of Refuge together. All those years, it had never blown apart, but it had never been properly strapped together. And so he was doing that, and his girlfriend at the time, who was a PhD type doctorate lady, but she got me these pictures from her dad, and we have them in our book that I did with my daughter-in-law, Deanna, and it is, we use those pictures in it, but it's just so wonderful where pictures come from. And of course, here the smoke illustrates that the submarines were being torpedoed right off of our coast. And we have V. Chambers was like an extra mother to the Hartman boys, and they were at it was I forget the name of it. It's a building that had a dance hall in Denson when it wasn't Seymour's when it was hit. And this is V. Chambers right here. She gave me this picture. But so many people worked at Camp Murphy. And of course, we had to have a place to entertain them. And where are we tonight? Ah, isn't that cool? There it is, right over there. I see it through that door. And this is Janet Kruger, and this is Naomi Kitching. Stanley finally got married. He eloped when he was 50. And so she was very much a part of the community. And if you go to the Women's Club building, and there's that beautiful mural done by Joy Postel on the wall, she had that painted in memory of her husband, Stanley. And so that remains. But you see all these people using the service club when it was a federal building. Another nice postcard. Look how much use it got. Really, the high schoolers used it a lot. And this just recently, Rick kind of cleared up what was going on. I think I put the wrong information in my Stuart book with a companion photograph to this, but it's when they were giving the airport back to the county. And that is Rick's grandfather, right there, Senator Crary. And that's
Marvin Rowell to his left.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And it was, let's see, where was, the picture, the clear picture. This is one of those pictures, Georgian, that came from clear. The one I used in my Stuart book that was a companion came from Buck Henry, and it was terrible and fuzzy. And these were nice and clear. So we have that. This is one of my favorite pictures, and this is when, and he was driven by Senator Crary to this event to put this plaque on the front of our courthouse when we were 25 years old in 1950. And so I wanted to reenact it. I thought that would be a perfect thing to do for the Centennial. But when I was talking during Art Fest, there's so many trees, you can't make a picture like that again. But maybe we could get a big flag. I wish we could. And then Tuckahoe. This is like Barbara was saying that Captain Sewell's house is in between Tuckahoe and the Sailing Center. When the Leaches came and built this house, it provided work for a lot of people that needed work. I think they got $1 a day. But notice she said she's in Sewell's Point. When we it's kind of a little bit out of the town of Sewell's Point now. And then the outrigger and Francis Langford, and they had given so much, and then that's the only picture I have to show for this particular occasion of Ralph Evinrude, and all the testing of the boats, and the Evinrude connection is just so important to us, and they were so philanthropic. But you know, this is what irked Mr. Leach. He didn't like all this, like mobile home parks and campgrounds, and look what even Francis Langford had all these houses. Of course, they were pretty substantial, and today these still are there at the Dolphin Restaurant. They're still there, but these have been demolished, and that's part of Castle Hill. And then Grumman. Oh, we have Nancy here. And it was so important when they came in 1950. And Art Melrose, Nancy's father, was the first one, and he stayed in one of those houses at the Outrigger before he stayed in the lodge over Sailfish Lodge in Palm City. But it certainly has made a difference. And then, of course, Jupiter Island and all that wealth, and the rich people got together and they bought out the pineapple people that were trying to develop it. They even had, when it became Olympia and a beach and Picture City, all that stuff during the boom, and then that fizzled, they bought them out and created their lifestyle that they like of old money. And Mr. Barso, these were the same people that started and gave the money for our hospital. So they have been so generous through the years, and I think Jackie Williams is just getting ready to give a talk about the Barstow's philanthropy at the little, they call it the Apollo School, but it's really the Olympia School. And they incorporated in 1953. And then, lo and behold, Ocean Breeze Park incorporated too. And today, you know, it has changed, everything changes, and it's still there, and it's still called Ocean Breeze by Sun Communities now, and people are loving it. And then this is one of the things, I have a box of things from the college, and this is what Heidi was the designer here, who's our mayor's wife. She did the signage for Indian Riverside Park, and it took all the things that was, you know, we take the things that people had shared, and then she put them together, and the text gets written, and it was supposed to be done in 4 months, and I think it took us 4 years. But right before Doug Smith retired, they were getting a little shoddy, and I complained, and they have been restored, and they're all new looking again. So this is Dean Teeley with FIT, the nuns, and Jackie Williams, when she worked for the county, did an hour-long audio video film, and it tells the history from the beginning to the end. So that's on YouTube, I think, so that's been preserved. And then here are the quarries again. This is your cousin, right? This is little Larry. And look how rainy it is, and how old and big and unhappy the governor looks. And here, you know, I've identified the people there, even Merle Barber from Vero Beach, who has so these two guys have really nice bridges named after them. And then this little guy is ready to cut, and he's now like, he's a preacher man for the Catholic Church. He's a deacon for the St. Joe's. And Governor Martin didn't live much longer after that. And Rick and I there's a difference in the day that the legislature named the bridges after the Ernie Alliance and Rick's grandfather. And then they had a celebration on a different day, and I may get that mixed up. But the sign says 65. And they couldn't name them. They couldn't name them after him right after they built, because, you know, we fight about everything. We fought about those bridges, and then of course Jensen wanted their bridge to be redone too, and there were tolls, and so anyway, after a few years, they were completed in 1958, and in 1965 they could be named for Ernie Lyons, and then Frank Waka got the Jensen Bridge named for him. And we kind of copied, Sewell's Point kind of copied the Jupiter Island, because Ted Alderson did the legal work for both of them. And we incorporated too to maintain our little lovely community and keep things the way we want to be, sovereign or something. And here, the library that was built for during downtown is where the Azure is, right over there, right over there. And this is Mrs. Mary Canner and Mrs. Stokes. And Mary Canner was in charge of the library being built. And see, this is now a Martin County library. It's not the Women's Club library anymore. So they had to have, you know, a friend of the library, a library association. And she did not want it in that wet Memorial Park where Dr. Miniger suggested. She wanted it on a place that didn't get so wet. So it was built on land that the Kiplinger family gave. And then we were actually, the turnpike was started right there in Palm City. That was where the Florida Turnpike, the first dirt was moved. And then in 1961, we dedicated the Elliott Museum, and we had the Bridges to the Sea. I think I better get going. And in 1964, we were the last ones to double lane US 1 all the way up to Maine. And so we were the last link in that. And Governor Governor Bryant came for that. And so I'm looking, did Nancy, and you did come. Very good. So I'm just seeing, when I said Hayden Burns, it was like, I think he came to the Holiday Inn. That was the guy mixed up. So that was Governor Bryant for this. And here we decided we need a new high school, so we built it on the city dump. And there it is when they just were moving, and there's the principal directing somebody. So this is the school, the old school, Stuart High School. Here's that gym that was built by WFA. There's Long Field, named after Possum Long. And then right over here is East Stuart. So they did not have everything that we had. They didn't have a gym, but they did pretty well. And and it was time to build them a new school. We couldn't build one for the white kids and not the black kids. So Murray, at that time, it was still Carver Gardens, and they named it Murray later. But here is their wonderful faculty, and you can see, I was so happy that the designer put Felix and Frederica Williams on the front, and that is Maddie. I think her name is Maddie Allen. She was a very important figure. And the reason that picture is there is because the black children gave money for abundance, just like everybody else. They collected money from the black children to build the statue that was in Memorial Park before it got put in Haney Circle. So, and then flower farms are everywhere. And Chuck Shadd, our friend Chuck Shadd, somehow he had a whole bunch of slides of what our town looked in 1970s. My goodness, it looked terrible. And so when we complained about everything changing, a lot has changed for the better. And then what started the change, and here we have Nancy Saylor and these newspaper clippings of how they participated. We had dancing in the street, and the Macmillans and the Jeffersons moved into the post office arcade. And just recently, a book has come out that really tells all about that era by Blake Fontenay, and it tells about how that happened and all that the Jeffersons and the McMillans and people like the Sailors did. So dancing in the streets. And I think I see somebody there. Who is that? There she is, right there. And who is that? There she is, right there. There she is. So isn't it wonderful that we have these people that are still with us and working still? And these pictures, like the first Art Fest was last week and it was great. And so these pictures, the first exhibit in the Courthouse Cultural Center was sponsored by Stuart Heritage. And what it was the Lions photograph. And at that time, Mitsubishi hadn't closed the windows and fixed the galleries and all. The windows were still open, and you were not supposed to put a nail in the wall or anything. So we did it with foam core, and we hung up these enlarged pictures by Bruce Cathcart here, with all these old names. And at that time, I put this picture and a few others on the landing, and they were in foam core. And there's a little plaque that says this was done by Stuart Heritage. I think it costs $400, the whole thing, to do the enlargements. And so those things are framed, and they're still on the landing. So go into the Arts Council and look at the landing, and there those pictures are that you guys paid for long ago in 1989 or so. And the wonderful feed store. It used to have baby chicks, just like Gary said, people can remember. And the House of Refuge was the same way. Everybody wanted the turtles. They'd come in and say, well, where are the turtles? So where are the chicks? So, and this is such a picture, even though it's from the newspaper. Look at this, all the things that are in it. We were so happy. We were going to get a new courthouse, and it was built on schedule. The price, stuck to the price. And here, see what had happened? Here we have, this is the courthouse that stands today. Here's the old school. Here's one addition. Here's the old addition, the wing that goes to this was the car dealership that became the A&P, and then it was the courthouse annex. So what a mismatch that was. And I'm afraid, I just checked, I guess this stuff is still back there, the water treatment. But this turned out, it was a sick building, and the architects had rallied. They said, Dwani said, that is a wonderful piece of architecture, you should save it. So they saved it. And so then they had to move out of all the new building because it was sick. And there, we started to move out of town. I thought Dale Hudson was going to come. And I wanted to say, like, he is there? Dale Hudson, he's here. Oh, good. So when I came to town in 1961, the bank, and at one time there was only the bank. That's all there was. The bank, you didn't say the name, it was just the bank. So, but here is the bank. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, here's the shopping center. So here's the bank. It's hard to tell because that filling station's there. So here's the bank. Okay, here's Johnson Avenue. I don't think the post office is built yet in this picture. But this is a shopping center, and that's what was happening to our little town. Everybody like went to the shopping center. But at least the road is two-laned. And look, this is all mobile homes here, where those big buildings are. So pretty fancy now compared. So I guess it's all right if they build a hotel there. And this is a picture of the bridges to the sea. And you know, that was 4th Street. That wasn't Ocean Boulevard. They named it Ocean Boulevard later, I think in 1961. But see, this is what all of this land, most of it was owned by Bessemer. And so they gave the right of way to go over there. And so flower farms here, this is where TG&Y was and all the East Ocean Mall. But look behind it, what is that? What is all that stuff? That's Kruger's Flower Farm. And this is Bell Plaza, done by Brady Bell Kruger. She built her own little shopping center there and had her flower shop there. So it was time for I-95. We're almost finished, I'm sorry. So, I mean, I'm glad for you that I'm sorry I'm so winded, so chat so much. But I-95, finally the missing link. I don't really know why it goes so far west. And then we've had this live wire librarian came. We just had one library and it was kind of dull. And then we built a Blake, and now we have all of the other branch libraries. We got a new Roosevelt Bridge, and that was big controversy. We thought about a tunnel. We thought about anything we could do. And then we dedicated the Memorial Bridge. It seemed like yesterday, but look how long ago it was. It's already been, it was 13.
12 years ago.
It seems. And look at this. The man that created Martin County with his power of his pen and his newspaper. And I'm going to stop right now because I forgot to say what happened in 1966. We got the Holiday Inn. Yes, Jack Saylor came. Was it Arkansas you guys came from? And that put us on the map. It was John Jochum was the first person to stay there, and he was buying Bill Green Chevrolet, and then it became John Jochum. And they had a big marquee, like a movie theater, and anything that happened that was important got mentioned there, whether it was Newspaper Week. There's a picture of Ernie Lyons and Jack standing out there with that on the marquee. But it was the happening place around Stuart. It put us on the map. So now I'm going to go back to Mrs. Saylor, who has been working with the Chamber of Commerce, and so has Jack all these years, and they're still working with them. That's why they get so much press and leadership. But she was sure that Dr. Miniger needed to be recognized because he was a very important person. And now I think with our studies, we realize just how important he was. And this county could never have been come to a reality if he hadn't pushed it with his newspapers and kept us together during the Depression. But here's Nancy with Dr. Miniger, and I looked on the back of this and it said Compliments of Southeastern Printing, and I took a picture of it with my phone and sent it to Donnie Mader and said, thank you. And I thank Nancy for all she's done, and Jack. And I thank Julie Priest. My goodness, how could anybody restore this knocked down, damaged arch that was on a county road, on a state road, so they changed it to a county road. I mean, you can't imagine what they went through. And I said, there's no way, but I wasn't right. And it's so amazing that it still stands. It looks just the way it did in that old postcard. And so there's not a better symbol of celebrating our county than that. And it's on the front of our magazine, and you guys better get it and read it. And that's it. So. thank you for coming. Thank you. Especially you people that don't usually come. Come next time, Laura and the sailors. And you know, Tish, the sailor's daughter, does our newsletter free of charge, and it's just perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. When we're reflecting back on everything, we need to understand that we are the products of history. And if we don't preserve our history, both the good and the bad, we're going to be lost.